5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, my name is Liz White, and it is my pleasure to be speaking today with Dr. Helen Caldicott, world-famous activist, physician, lecturer, and author of Nuclear Madness, If You Love This Planet, and the recently published A Desperate Passion.
Oh, and you left one out, Missile Envy.
Missile Envy.
Yes.
Dr. Caldicott is one of the most influential anti-nuclear spokespersons of our time, and it is an honor to have her on our program. Welcome, Helen.
Hello.
I'd like to start by asking you about the book you've just published, your autobiography titled A Desperate Passion. Where did you get the idea to write your life story?
I've thought of it for quite a while. One of the reasons I wrote it was because within my own beautiful organisation, Physicians for Social Responsibility, which I actually founded and sort of nurtured and grew to adolescence, there was a palace coup and I, in a certain sense, was evicted. And then some other character went on to actually claim the Nobel Prize. And it was given to the whole international physicians movement. But in fact, the way he did it was really terrible, so I didn't even go to the ceremony. And I was very hurt, and I used to have nightmares about it for years. And I think it helped to end my marriage because I got pretty depressed. And I remember cleaning the windows of my country house in Australia, and all I could think of was these two characters. Anyway, I finally recovered and healed. And then I thought about other Nobel Prizes, like Lisa Meitner, who discovered the equation for nuclear fission way back. She was Jewish, and she was evicted from Germany and escaped to Denmark during the war. And her colleague, who actually didn't develop the formula for nuclear fission, he got the Nobel Prize. And she was ignored. There was another woman, I can't remember her name, who did the seminal work with Watson and Crick, who discovered the DNA molecule, and she was ignored too. And there are other instances. I'm sure it's happened to men too, but I just thought, look, this is not going to be another woman that bites the dust. I think it's very important. And people told me to be a good girl, shut up, don't mention their names. But I thought it was very important that we write the truth of our own history so we can be models for each other.
In this group, Physicians for Social Responsibility, I understand from your book that after you left, they rewrote their own history?
Oh yeah, they did. These characters wrote their own history and I wasn't even in it. I mean, that was extraordinary. So I thought, no. But I had to recover enough and not feel angry and upset. So I was objective, and I was able then to take the history largely from the minutes of the meetings and reconstruct the whole story. And I've done it, I think, without any animus or animosity. And it was an important history because actually we, the physicians, led the movement against nuclear war in the 80s.
It's a book that blends really well the strategies of the movement and other movements you were involved with and things, as well as your personal life. And how did you balance out those two things? Or are they mingled together so it wasn't such a challenge?
Well, they're always mingled together, aren't they? I mean, your life is your life. You get up in the morning, you have your breakfast and have a shower and deal with the kids and take a phone call and go off and do whatever you're doing. And so lives aren't divided into sectors. You can't do that like sort of putting clothes in a cupboard, clothes for this cupboard and these are in my underclothes and they're all separate. It's all together and you're all one psyche.
And how are you able to put the story of your life in a book such as this and bring up the painful parts of your life as well as your accomplishments?
Well, I thought when I wrote it, I read biographies because I want to find answers for my own life. That's why I read these sort of books. And I thought, look, I'm ashamed of nothing in my life. I've done some crazy things, but we all have. And you could write a story as fascinating as mine because we all have fascinating lives. So I'll write the whole thing, warts and all. So I actually vomited out 750 pages and my editors threw their hands in the air and they crossed out huge sections of my life saying boring, boring, and it had to be given some structure. So there was one editor in Australia who gave the whole thing a sort of skeletal structure, and then I rehung the flesh back on the bones of the skeleton, and out of that came this book.
And what was the hardest part of writing this book?
Well, I think because I had a very stringent editor in the United States and she was very perceptive, and I'd write something about my mother and my relationship with my mother or my marriage, and she would say, well, what did you do? What had you done to produce that situation? What was your role? And it was almost like she'd put me on the psychiatrist's couch and I had to examine areas, and it was sort of embarrassing that I'd never looked at before. But I think it was a very important practice and exercise, because out of that came more reflection, more humility, more taking responsibility for what happened to me. You know, in truth, you actually create your own reality in life. And it's no use blaming anyone else.
What did you enjoy most about the process of writing your autobiography?
I think part of it was they asked me about my ancestors, about which I knew practically nothing, and I had to do research, and I found that my great-grandfather was Captain Coffey. He was an Irishman. He came to Australia and married a woman, and they had 4 children in quick succession, but they both had a predilection for Irish whiskey, and they drank themselves to death and left 4 orphans in their they were in their 30s when they died. I had no idea. My uncle was an alcoholic and died bleeding to death from esophageal varices. My mother was what you would describe as a dry alcoholic. She had unpredictable, spontaneous rages, which traumatized me a lot as a child. And I never understood where that came from too, so it helped me enormously. Then my other great-grandmother left her rector husband or minister husband, took her children off, was a brilliant writer, and she organised a silkworm farm in New South Wales in the outback and brought single women with children there. And so she had a sort of collective commune, if you will, of women who needed support. And she was clear, and she was the first woman to matriculate in Australia, that is, to end high school. And she was the first woman in Australia to apply to medical school. And she was rejected on the grounds of her sex. So, and then my grandmother was very musical. I mean, I was able to sort of, and then my other great-grandfather, William Kerr, was an irascible Scotsman who founded the Argus in Melbourne, which was the main newspaper in Australia. He was against bringing convicts from Tasmania, which is where they took the convicts, the British took the convicts, to Victoria, where the Argus was situated. He took on a whole lot of government people. He was a difficult man. And I guess I've got a few of his genes. He was the first town clerk of Melbourne. And then the other great-grandfather was named Bronowski, and that's what my name is, Helen Bronowski. He was Polish, and he ran away to escape being conscripted by the Russian army, because they would have sent him, he was of nobility, they would have sent him off to Siberia or something. And he came to Australia, and he drew all the birds of Australia. He was also a bit of a contentious character too, but he drew all the... So his books now are collector's items, and so he in a way was a pioneer. So it was fascinating finding out about, you are a product of your genes.
And what have your children thought about this book?
I haven't read it. My kids never read my books. Well, they've heard me talk about this stuff over and over. Mum's at it again. Shut up, Mum. So they won't read it till probably I die. And then they might feel a bit sad and they might read my story. But to this point, certainly they have no inclination to read it.
You've worked with an incredible variety of organizations and individuals, activist groups, politicians, and religious organizations. I was wondering if there's any key factors you've identified in a group or individual that makes them more successful in activist work.
Well, I spoke to so many groups, as you said. I spoke to all the churches in America, and I just was actually at a Methodist conference in Memphis the other day, and women came up and said, do you remember that day you spoke to us? It was probably 82. I spoke to 30,000 Methodist women in this sort of huge cavernous auditorium, and I described the medical effects of nuclear war, and they were so shocked. They rushed back to their ministers and they said, well, what are we doing about nuclear war? And they'd sort of say, well, what do you mean, nuclear war? And because of the women's persistence, the Methodist ministers wrote a pastoral letter on nuclear war, which was actually better than the Catholic bishop's pastoral letter on nuclear war, which I helped to initiate too, not the letter itself, but by educating them. The Catholics supported a just war, which is, you can kill people if you want. But the Methodists said, no way must we kill people, particularly with nuclear weapons. And then I'd go to the Southern Baptists, very conservative, Jerry Falwell territory. I'd talk to them about what Jesus said. And one of the first 10 commandments, thou shalt not kill. And they really had no redress, and they had to agree. to the Republicans, I'd wear my, Jaeger suits and pearls, and I'd be very conservative because preventing nuclear war is the ultimate conservative issue. It's for conserving life. To doctors, I'd show no emotion at all because they can't handle emotion. I'd just bomb them with data. Bang, 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 bang. No emotion. And they'd sort of be lying in the aisles at the end and signing up to join Physicians for Social Responsibility. So, and then women, I'd be emotional. Film stars, I'd be very emotional. But what I hoped to do during that hour was to change their lives forever, break through their psychic numbing, get to their souls, and change them. And I still continually hear stories. I heard you speak 10 years ago, you changed my life. I hear it every day. I'll give you an example. One woman called Joan Beaucaire, who's Jewish, heard me speak years and years ago, and she became profoundly depressed. She's an atheist or an agnostic anyway, but she has no faith. And she could hardly move for 2 years. Depression produces insomnia and lack of appetite and sexual appetite and the like. One morning she woke up and she knew what she was going to do. Just bang like that, the light turned on. So she went to the Heritage Foundation, which is the right-wing think tank that organised the whole of the Reagan agenda and is one of the main commentators now on the political scene. Their spokesmen are always on the networks. Blast them. The Heritage Foundation is funded by the Reader's Digest, Hertz Rent-A-Car, Holiday Inns, Coors Beer, Ocean Spray Cranberries. They have an extremely conservative agenda. Their fundamental ethics are, shall I say, evil. Destroy the United Nations, no free healthcare in this country, destroy the welfare system, and all the money goes into the corporate coffers. I can't describe it any other way but evil. They suggested 200 recommendations for Reagan in his first term. He enacted 2/3 of them, and they did it again in his second term. He destroyed this country, Reagan did. Anyway, made it a huge detonation and the like. But she got up that morning. She went to the Heritage Foundation in Washington. She knocked on the door and said, "Hello, Joan Beaucaire." Hello, she said, "I'm Joan Beaucaire." And they said, "Well, hello, Joan, come in." She got a job. She worked there for a year. She went through all their records, all their funding, and all their agendas. She left after a year, and then she went and spoke at hundreds or even thousands of churches right across America to teach the American people what the right-wing agenda was. And they were talking about Armageddon. They were talking about nuclear war as a good thing, that in Revelations it says only those with the mark of God on their forehead will go up to meet Jesus in the sky. And I can't remember all the other really evil stuff that they were recommending, but certainly they were recommending that nuclear war was an evil war. Nuclear war would be a good thing. And so that's just one example of the brilliance that comes from the creativity and ingenuity of people's souls if they allow themselves to feel the true pain of what is happening to the world. Because most Americans don't want to feel pain. You watch the ads, get some extra strength Tylenol. I've got this arthritis, I'll get. But also psychological pain is unacceptable. Have a nice day. Well, I don't want to have a nice day. I'm having a bad day, thank you very much. And through this bad day, I'll learn something about myself. Pain is the way to psychological and spiritual growth.
What role do you feel the media plays in people's either unawareness or desire not to learn everything that's happening?
Well, the media is owned by now wicked corporations. General Electric owns NBC. General Electric makes nuclear power plants. They're selling them now to China, so the Chinese can die of leukemia and genetic disease from radioactive waste. They build nuclear weapons, have been one of the main sponsors of the nuclear arms race. They own NBC. I was going to go on the Today Show. They booked me for 6 months before my book, If You Love This Planet, came out. Unfortunately, or fortunately, in If You Love This Planet, I used General Electric as a prototype of a quite evil corporation who do wicked things. So they got the book and read it, and then they rang my publisher and said, well, sorry, but she's no longer credible. And the publisher said, why? And they said, well, she's just not. And they cancelled me. Now, that's an example that you have no free press in this country. Westinghouse owns CBS. They do the same as NBC. And Mickey Mouse owns ABC. And it's very serious because legally you, the public, own the airwaves. And by abrogation, you've allowed corporations to steal them from you, A. B, corporations are interested in nothing but profit. The news these days is boring. It's usually about who's killed who, or who's raped who, or what fires there were. Concentrating on the negative, it doesn't give you a true picture of your own history, of what America's doing around the world, of the problems facing us all, both domestically and internationally, because it's bad for ads. And the news is really just the skeleton upon which they hang the ads to get people to buy more stuff. So by keeping the media is actually determining the fate of the earth. And as one of your great presidents once said, Jefferson, an informed democracy will behave in a responsible fashion. This democracy is almost totally uninformed now about the major issues confronting the earth and our future. And the whole thing's run by businessmen who are scientifically literate. Less than 3% of your Congress is scientifically literate. Rush Limbaugh gets on and says there's no problem with the ozone layer, the earth isn't heating up. He's lying. It's like a doctor lying to you about your health. You know that you're dying and the doctor lies to you. But the earth's dying. When I wrote If You Love This Planet a few years ago, they said we've got 10 years before the interacting effect of ozone depletion, global warming, destruction of the forests and the species and overpopulation and the like, produce a situation where there's what we call in medicine total organ collapse and the patient always dies. 10 years, and I wrote that in 1992. So I don't believe that Rush Limbaugh should be allowed to be on the air when he's lying to people about the state of the health of the planet and their future and the future of their children. It's like Goebbels, and I say that advisedly, I really do, because it's so serious now. We're playing around, monkeying around, gambling with the future of evolution. And for me, you know, the life process is sort of my religion. I find that to be sacred. So, you know, he's mucking around with 30 million species on the planet, including ourselves. So I think we've got to rethink things. And I don't think anyone should be president if they're scientifically literate, if they don't understand genetics, biology and medicine, period. I really, really believe that.
As opposed to looking for someone who's had a lot of military experience.
Well, military is about killing people. And there are no enemies now in the world. And what America should do is, the Pentagon's obsolete, so they should redistribute that money to everyone who needs free medical care in this country. You're the only developed country in the world without a free medical care system. You know, that's really regressive. It's archaic. And the money's there. It's all going to killing. It's all going to Lockheed and Martin Marietta and General Electric and Westinghouse to build more weapons that you don't need. And it's time that the expertise from the Pentagon is transferred to the United Nations, where democratically you work with the other countries of the world with humility, not saying we're the greatest, we're the best, you know, testosterone, the testosterone effect, but that you work with humility with others to keep the peace in the world, in Somalia and Burundi and Bosnia. Not that America takes it on alone, but you work with other people in a democratic situation. If you believe in democracy, practice it. And then you'll free the money up to be so that you can care for yourselves. That's true national security. I went to medical school in Australia. I didn't pay a penny. Our tax dollars were used for my medical education. Your tax dollars must be used for you. So you really need a revolution, because at the moment your Congress is totally and utterly controlled by the corporations who fund all the campaigns. So it's time you rose up and did something. I don't mean blood and guts. I mean a revolution of thinking, of critical thinking, of action, and of courage and altruism.
When you were fighting against nuclear weapons proliferation during the Cold War, you were fighting against people who thought that we had to have a lot because the Russians have a lot. And now we still have such a huge arsenal of weaponry, even though we don't have this superpower enemy. How does that tactic change when you're up against people, or in a situation where you don't have that kind of immediate threat of an immediate big enemy, and yet you still have all the weapons in the same military.
Well, you know, no one in this country has had the guts during this election campaign to say, Mummy, the Emperor hasn't got any clothes on. The Cold War's over. We have no enemies. That money going to the Pentagon is your money and it's being stolen from you. These military-industrial corporations are robber barons. And you can't blame anyone else. You know, you've got to take the responsibility for yourselves. In Australia, we've got a syndrome called aorta. And it's not the main vessel coming out of the left ventricle. It is aorta fix the bridges, aorta fix the cities, aorta do this, aorta do that. And I think a lot of Americans have the aorta syndrome. You don't say that. You say, I will. And anyone that says, but I don't have time, but this, but is procrastinating. They're saying, I won't. But I believe if you have children, you have an enormous responsibility to make sure those children have a safe future. And at the moment, our children don't have a safe future. In 50 years, the Earth will be heating up. There'll be meteoric changes in the temperature, in the weather. There'll be deaths of millions of people from tidal waves and floods and hurricanes. We're already starting to see it. In Australia, there's an epidemic of skin cancer and melanoma and blindness from the ozone depletion. It's only going to get worse. And if 1 billion Chinese get cars, which General Motors is very enthusiastic about, the global warming's a certainty. If 1 billion Chinese get refrigerators for ice cubes for their Coke, because Coke's now into China via Rupert Murdoch's satellite, then the ozone layer's gone. And without the ozone layer, we're all blind. We're all blind. 50 years? That's our children's future, let alone all other future generations. And not just our children will go blind, but all animals will go blind with the ozone depletion eventually. So the responsibility we have now is ginormous. And we tend to practice psychic numbing and hedonistic lifestyle. I want this. I want my bottom lifted. I want my face lifted. Who gives a damn about your bottom and your face? What we need is our souls to be lifted, to step into our true strength, our true power, our true passion, to realize why we were born. We were born to save God's creation. That's why we were born. And I know we've got the power and strength to do that. I know we do.
Do you have any specific steps or suggestions?
No, well, yeah, I do. I think you've got to educate yourselves. And this isn't a sell, but if you read the books I wrote, If You Love This Planet, about the environment and why it's all so screwed up, and if you read Nuclear Madness about what's happening, especially there's a big section on Hanford and the like, and I suppose if you read my new book, A Desperate Passion, you'll have enough information, and then you'll be impelled to read much more. You'll have enough information, and stay with the information, stay with the emotional response you have, stay with the pain it produces, because through the pain and the grief, you will suddenly know what you're going to do. And I can't provide answers for each of you, because each of you has a uniquely beautiful soul that's totally different from mine. And if you're quiet and turn off the radio and turn off the television, work in your garden or go for a walk in the woods, the answers will appear to you, as they always have for me. No one's ever told me what to do. I think it's an insult to tell people what to do, because it's not their solution, not their answer.
It becomes very clear in your book that your passion to save not only your children's future, but the future of the world is what impelled you. And it was incredible, the schedules that you had and the things that you accomplished, and just, it's all very overwhelming. And I wanted to ask, what kept you going during times of fatigue or frustration?
My passion. My love for life. I nearly died when I was a baby, or I felt I did, and I've always been a bit neurotic about illness and a bit of a hypochondriac, and my passion for life just fills me. And no one is going to kill my kids or the children of the world. I took the Hippocratic Oath, and I am a physician backwards and frontwards. It's like being a nun. It's my vocation. I was born to do it. Nobody is going to kill any life over my dead body, and virtually that's what it was, because I had 8 death threats. I used to stand up on the stage and think, well, do bullets go through wood? You know, because I'd have a wooden podium. And I've run off the stage several times. It was dangerous, but I used to think, well, If I'm killed now, I've got to die sometime. At least I know I'm doing the right thing. And I know we all feel like that, because I see people who are dying, and as they die, their souls open up and you see the beauty and the love that we all have. That's what we have to tap into. Stop listening to this rubbishy stuff we get from corporations about, if you just have this plastic thing, or wear this tampon, or do this, you'll have good sex and be happy till you die. Don't believe that rubbish. Don't listen to any more advertising. They only advertise things that you don't need. They don't advertise air, or water, or bread or milk. You have to have them to live. They only advertise things and the way they advertise is to appeal to greed, to insensitivity, to emotional bias that is damaging to people.
Well, what kind of projects are you involved with at the moment?
Well, I've got a talk radio show too on WBAI, which is Pacifica in New York, and that's apparently going national in October, so that's quite fun, once a week. I was teaching at the New School for Social Research, and I did a course called The Media, Global Politics and the Environment, and I case historied Murdoch and Hearst and got them to compare both, and that was a fascinating thing. I want to write a book, I think, called The Sacred Art of Healing, about, on my recent spiritual journey, I learnt about alternative healing, not herbs and all that, but energetic healing, and that is complementary to Western medicine, and how there's a great deficit in the way doctors treat people, and that's why people are flocking in herds to other sort of healers. And I'd like to write a book about what I learned. When you live the spiritual life and the spiritual journey, you honestly don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So I wake up and say, okay, Spirit, what's today? And whatever presents itself, I do. I'm not in control anymore. I thought I was, but I'm not.
What do you think is the state of the environmental movement today?
It's not nearly powerful enough. There was a wonderful article by David Brower, who did he found the Sierra Club? He's a wonderful, wonderful man. He said that Clinton's done more damage to the environment than Bush or Reagan did. Isn't that interesting? But he's allowed logging to go ahead up here, even though he had that big... He's such a vacillator, He's got a fatal flaw, and that is he needs approval. If he'd got in and said, look, I'm president, I don't care if I get re-elected or not, I'm going to enact all my programs I promised you, he would have been elected in a landslide like FDR. So he's a problem, big time problem. Whether or not he changes when he gets re-elected, and I'm sure he will, I don't know if he's got the guts. So the environmental movement isn't nearly strong enough, and there's a huge amount more work to do.
I wanted to ask the impediments in fighting against environmental destruction as opposed to the impediments you had fighting against nuclear proliferation.
Well, I think the nuclear proliferation and the nuclear arms race was pretty big. I mean, I was taking on the sacred symbols of this country, the military-industrial complex and the Pentagon, and the animosity at that time towards the Russians and the Soviet Union was so profound. The raison d'etre of America was the evil empire. And now that's gone, it's interesting, what are people doing with their paranoia, Paranoid people need to project their anger outwards rather than taking responsibility for their own feelings. And so we've got the militia now, the Oklahoma bombing, saying that the United Nations wants to take over America and talking about black helicopters and stuff. So the paranoia has gone inwards into America. That needs to be dealt with. Those people need help. They need therapy. No one should be starving in this country. There should be no homeless. There should be no unemployment in the richest country on earth. So there's a huge amount to be done. Now I've forgotten what your question was because I'm off on a tangent as usual. What was it?
Compare fighting against
Well, the nuclear thing was really, I was dealing with this incredible hatred, and it was frightening. And I'm sure the CIA thought about killing me. But I would have become a martyr, and that would have damaged their cause. When I left PSR, it had been infiltrated by the FBI, and after it all happened, I rang John Stockwell, who was formerly in the CIA, and I told him what had happened. He said, Helen, that was a classical operation. He said, but you'll never find out. So I suspect that they did me in psychologically rather than kill my body. Although we're at a point where there's a CTB, America still continues and plans to make more nuclear weapons. So really, we haven't achieved much, except the end of the Cold War, which is a big thing. That was a miracle. But now we've got to finish our work and abolish nuclear weapons. The environmental movement is more tenuous. I've got a friend who named himself John Seed in Australia. He's been working for years and years to save the forests of the world, the tropical rainforests. And I said to him recently, John, do you think you've saved a single tree? And he looked at me. He said, no. So it's the corporations who are destroying the earth, big time. I mean, that arouses huge amounts of passion in me. Huge. They are amoral. Their bottom and top line is money, and they don't give a stuff about people or the earth or the environment or anything else. Was that a rude word to use? Good.
It's especially hard when they're in such control of the media.
Yeah,
That seems
that's why you need a revolution. But as I said, it's hard to have a revolution amongst people with full tummies. I mean, the French did it. The Russians did it. Do you have the courage to do what they've done? Take back your country, if you ever owned it, but take it over. Do you? I'm asking you. Do you?
I would hope so.
Right. No, that's not a good enough answer. See, you're procrastinating. I'm asking you, do you have the courage to actually help lead your country towards a revolution?
Yes.
Right. Because it's either yes or no, I will or I won't. Sorry to put you on a spot, but we really need to do that now. Yeah.
Do you have any other questions for our audience?
No.
Okay, well, I want to thank you very much. We've been
Pleasure.
talking with Dr. Helen Caldicott. Again, her new book is A Desperate Passion. It's her autobiography and a fascinating read. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz.
Can I get in one question?
Yeah?
Just real quick. Can you discuss at all about, there's a major U.S. military installation in Australia, I believe it's called
Pine Gap.
Could you?
Well, it's
say
a huge
something about
CIA base. Pine Gap is a huge CIA base put there in the late 60s, and the Americans lied to us and told us it was a defence facility, but it's the biggest CIA base in the world. It spies on half the world. It was involved in planning for First Strike Nuclear War, and it's being involved in planning for Star Wars. The Americans pay us the rent of one peppercorn per year. When Gough Whitlam, who was our probably greatest Prime Minister, was about to name the CIA operatives in Parliament the next day, the CIA deposed him. And they called it a mild chili. I can't tell you how I feel about the Americans coming in and deposing my Prime Minister. How dare they? The Americans have no right to interfere in any other country in the world. They've got to fix their own, and that's a big enough problem. So that's my statement about Pine Gap.